welcome back to another episode of Not So Wide Divide. Today we are talking about minimum wage. I don't know where everybody stands on this. I know I have a two-side coin to this conversation because as a business owner and then as a human being, I think that there's two elements to this conversation.
You got a third and a taxpayer.
Well, I mean that's a part of being a human being in this country,
Yes.
But I want to get everybody's opinion, and I think it's going to be a deep dive. I think that it's everybody thinks it's a simple conversation, and I don't think it's a simple conversation. I think it's levels. I think I think people have the wrong conversation on this topic. I think they pinpoint a specific ideology in the minimum wage debate, and on both sides, and everything else gets lost in the shuffle and the transition and the emotion, right? Because when you look at statistics and you look at numbers, and I get the human element, because that's always, every time I start thinking about how I'm going to run these episodes, I always have Tory in the back of my mind with a human element. And the human element is multifaceted. It's not just a single shade. It's so many different avenues and emotions in people's things. So it's like let's talk about it. So Coty, I'll start with you when it comes to we'll keep it really really open right now. Just the whole idea of everybody wants to increase minimum wage.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like you have to have a minimum wage because you can't expect people to work for like sweatshop type salaries. But I think that a lot of times people confuse minimum wage with livable wage and thinking that you should be able to afford the dream home and the Disney vacations every year and the steak diet on minimum wage, and it's not what it's for. Minimum wage is for you to be able to survive. I think it's meant to be a springboard, an entry level. You start at minimum wage, you work yourself up, and then as you build yourself, then eventually you can afford those nicer things. You make good financial decisions. Your maturity level starts to increase, and it's just life and growing as a human. And I think that a lot of people look at that minimum wage hike and they want it to almost be like a shortcut to where the people that's been working for 20 or 30 years are. And it's just. There's no shortcuts in life, man. I think that if we raise minimum wage to $15 an hour, like they're proposing, businesses are not in the business of giving money away. I think that at the back end of it, the consumer is going to be the one that's going to have to pay for that. It's not going to be the business. So am I for $15 an hour? No. Am I open to look at minimum wage versus the cost of living and see if there needs to be an increase? Absolutely, but not a jump like that. I mean, you're talking about double, a little more than double what it is now. So that's my initial take on it. I'm sure we'll dive deeper, but just my opening thoughts.
So, what is minimum wage right now?
Minimum wage is I wrote it down, $7.25.
So, you said a business would not be in the concept of losing money, right? So, my first job, I was making $4.75. I've been working 20 years plus, and you mean to tell me a company hasn't made enough money to only leapfrog you $3 in 20 plus years?
Oh, I'm not.
No, it's just a talking point.
Right.
Just some
Okay.
things
All right,
to
yeah.
give us
And
to think about. And
that's a good point. I'd like to come back to that.
And that's why I asked,
Right.
just so we don't just be strictly talking, and $15, if I can make it off of $4.75, I mean, things going to increase. Milk increased since it was
Right,
$4.75.
right.
Everything has increased since it was $4.75. I mean, if 15, you know how much it costs for a Whopper combo right now? We used to go get two of them things for $2.50. You
Look,
might
the
pay
only time as a
$11
kid,
now.
the only time that we had Whoppers, when Whoppers were 99 cents. When Whoppers ran a 99-cent special,
Right.
that's the only time we ate out when I was a kid.
Bro, I'm
Right.
gonna tell you like this,
You
and a lot of people don't understand how poor I grew up prior to meeting you guys and moving in with my mom. You know, when I lived with my dad, when we would get a kids meal, there was four of us. It was me, my sister, and I had two brothers who were twins. I don't even know if the twins are even old enough to remember this. My sister would be. But when we would get a Happy Meal, and it was a very, very rare thing that we would get one, it was split. Like, me and one of my little brothers split the Happy Meal, and my sister and one of my little brothers split the Happy Meal, and they were younger, so they got the toy. You know, like, it wasn't, and that's a Happy Meal, bro. Like, that's
I mean,
not.
hey, we all got those stories.
Right.
man,
Absolutely.
you know? But that's the beauty of life, you know, just to be able to see those type of times and know what the family was going through, and then
Right.
see them come out of that. Still, at the same time, I think the minimum wage subject is it more about who's getting the $15 an hour, if it's fast food workers, janitors, etc., or is it just the general population? You know, is that our biggest gripe? Because, I mean, we done so much already. Why not?
Well, I mean, I understand the
Let me lay a little context real quick, because I don't want to get on the what ifs, right? You brought up milk, and it's funny because I wrote these statistics down. I looked them up yesterday, and I was like, you know what, let's look at it. So, price of goods, I wrote a couple different stats down and just kind of compared everything. Like, so the price of goods compared to minimum wage. We'll just talk about that real quick, right? So in 1995, right, minimum wage was $3.80 an hour. In 1995, a gallon of milk was $2.49. So if you take that to 2010, right? So I'll back up to 2007 because minimum wage range. So let me backtrack. So from 1981 to 1990, minimum wage was $3.80, right? And I just took the largest gaps in history because some years it was like it increased 10 cents, 7 cents, 5 cents every year. These are the gaps where it didn't increase, but every 7 or 10 years. So from 1981 to 1990, it went from 335 to 380. From 1997 to 2007, in 97 it was 515, and in 2007 it went to 585. And the last time our minimum wage increase was in 2009. It went from 585 to 725, right? So it's been some time since we've had a minimum wage, hike. So, do I think minimum wage needs to increase? Yes. I think it's time for an increase. But the historical increase, right? I think that it should increase as we've increased it in time. You can't jump it to $15 an hour.
Right, that's the point I was just about to say. Right.
Because so at 725, so from 2009 till now. Well, if you want to double the cost of minimum wage, nothing has doubled in price. Goods, right? I mean, cars have and homes have. But a price of milk went from $2.49 in 1995 to $3.32 in 2020. It's a 50% increase.
How many people still drink milk?
But, I mean, that you used milk as an example. That's why I said,
right.
Okay, so let's say gas.
Right. I didn't want to use gas.
Why?
Why? Because gas is controlled by who?
Again, but why? It's still a commodity.
So gas
So you
was
wanna
50
sort-
cents at one point.
Not in this time frame. It's not.
Not in what time frame?
I mean,
In
minimum
your
wage was
lifetime?
5 cents at one time.
In your lifetime, it was never 50 cents? That's
No.
what you're saying?
No, maybe when
Maybe
I
about
first
2
started
years
driving,
before.
it was under
Not
$1 an
driving,
hour.
just-
No, I'm saying me. I don't remember. I couldn't say. But again, I have in 1995, gas was $1.20 a gallon.
All right.
And that's national.
2000 was $1. This is national average,
All right.
right? In 2000, it was $1.56.
But I
2010,
mean, so the national $15 would be minimum wage everywhere. Everywhere doesn't have a $7.25 minimum wage like
yes,
us.
that's a federal minimum
It's
wage.
federal minimum wage.
So
right.
across the United States, everybody's minimum
No.
wage is $7.25.
Federally, that's the lowest you can pay somebody is
States
$7.25
have
an hour.
different minimum wages.
You can change
Right.
you can change it per city.
Right.
right? Like
Right.
California has a $13 an hour minimum wage. San Francisco has $15, right? Washington State is like $13.25.
Right.
Seattle's like $15.
Right. It's more expensive to live in those places.
Yeah. Again, but that's a whole part of this conversation. Is it truly more expensive to live in those areas? It is.
The cost of everything is
but-
more in those areas.
Again, it's kind of that same debate because
which
the
is
increase of everything.
right, but that's
Right?
why minimum wage is higher in those places
Yeah.
because it's
So nothing's went up.
Yeah, it's going up, but it's going up because so if it's kind of like what happened in New York in the mid 2000s is remember that guy had a guy that was running for governor and he eventually wanted to run for president is that the rent's too damn high, right? Well, that was his argument. Well, it's only too damn high if nobody can pay it. I promise you, if half the people move out, prices going to drop.
oh, absolutely.
That's what
Right.
I mean
Right.
about the milk situation.
So, yeah, but I mean, you don't stop drinking milk because it got too expensive.
You don't?
Most people don't. I'm not saying you don't have some that don't, but most people don't. I mean, look, we all three talking about how, we weren't raised with a silver
When the last
spoon.
time you drank milk?
I'm not a big milk drinker personally as an adult, but as a
You-
kid, I drank it all the time.
I have 3 gallons in my fridge right now. My kids drink milk.
Yeah, my kids drink the hell out of milk, But what I'm getting at is that you can use toilet paper, you can use any commodity that there is, right?
Mhm.
And the nothing justifies economically doubling minimum wage, right? So in today's day and age, the average, and this is just a full-time employee, 25 to 64 years old, so that age gap, makes $39,000 a year, right? That's less than the median income in the country,
Right.
right? But I think we could all say $39,000 a year is a livable wage.
You can survive on it.
It's a livable wage.
You can't make many mistakes.
This is a single person. This isn't a household,
Right.
right?
So you think, all right.
You're talking about $80,000 a year, basically.
So what's the
for
population
It
to that
is.
single person?
What do you mean what's the population? This is national average. So this is every full-time employee in the United States from the ages of 25, and this is the labor board statistics. They use 25 because this is out of college age,
Right.
out of household.
Right.
This is,
You're on your own insurance. that kind of
25
stuff.
to 64 years old, pre-retirement. They average $39,000 a year,
How much is that per hour?
right? $18.75.
Right.
How much does that take home?
Again, it depends on your deduction, so that's a whole other argument.
And that's probably why 90% of the people claim single.
But again, that's minimum deductions in your life,
I
right?
understand.
I mean, claiming single or claiming it doesn't matter. If you claim
But
single,
that's
you
a
actually pay
singles
more
person.
taxes.
I
This is
understand.
this is gross. This is gross average. So this has nothing to do with your.
And minimum wage is a gross. It's a
Well,
Right.
yeah.
It's before taxes.
Well, no, where you going? I'm trying to see where you're going with it.
I'm just saying, like, so how can I say this without giving people up?
Just say it, bro. We
I know
passed
married
that.
people that just don't file joint and still file single under their maiden name.
They're hurting themselves if they're doing that.
Once again, we ain't speaking education.
But this has nothing to do with taxes, though.
So how would they know they're single?
No. What I'm saying is
How would
that
they know they're a single family?
why does that matter in this discussion? What minimum wage is or what wages are?
What you
And for the-
you
for this-
said
Tory,
because
for this-
of the numbers is
for
a national.
this-
Hold on.
It's not household income, is what I'm saying.
It's a single person's.
It could be married. They could have 9
But
kids.
that's what I'm asking. I'm
know.
only going off of the information you're giving me, and I'm only asking one simple question: that
I
how
get what you're
does
saying.
they find
Right.
out that it's a single person versus a single mother that may have a kid in that lineup?
Okay,
They're not-
let me back up 1 second.
They're
This
not
is
talking about single or married. They're talking about one individual.
one
person.
individual.
An
And
individual
I
person.
understand that, right? But when Jerry made the comment, he said, this is not a household, this is one individual. And my question is, how do we know that one individual doesn't have a kid?
We don't.
That would
We don't.
cut and dry. That's all I was
Okay,
saying.
we don't.
Just so I can further
Okay,
gauge
yeah.
my comments for
Yeah.
later.
Yeah,
We don't. We don't. But it's okay.
And your question was,
What's
do
the
we think that's livable?
Yes, that was my
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So
It's
that's
a-
why I needed more detail.
So, statistically speaking, things are broken down in income-wise in two phases. Anytime you look it up, it's going to be a single, not necessarily single, not married, a single individual or a household average income.
Right, it's-
Average household, average person.
Right. It's
Right.
it's individual
Yeah.
income.
Hey, I'm just asking.
Yeah, I know, and that's why I
questions.
just want to clarify. So, $39,000 is definitely livable wage. Because, again, in this country, the median income, right, which is the middle, not an average, it's the middle income, is $60,000, $30 annually in this country as a household,
Right.
right? So,
That's
individuals,
one source of
39,000,
income.
household is 60,000. So, that's a household census,
Yeah, that's two sources of income.
right? So, again, that's the middle. So we would all say that that's a livable wage, right? But we still have 50%, that number's in the middle. 50% of people that make under that, right?
No, that's not correct. If the middle, like how big is the middle? The middle might be 40% of the people,
But
so that's
there's
not
still
50%
regardless
on
of-
each side.
Well, sure it is. How is it not 50% on each side?
Because if you have a population of 100,000 people,
Mm-hmm.
okay, and the middle income is $60,000, and 20 to 40,000 people
I get that.
make
And- yeah.
$60,000, and 50% of it's not below. That's
I get that.
40%
What
of
I'm
the
saying is
population.
it's still, if you look on that scale, whether it's 1 cent less, it's still less than it. It tears down was where I was going with that, right? So at some point in that bottom half, right,
Okay.
there is a section that is not a livable wage,
Oh, absolutely.
right?
Yeah.
So, but back to the argument that minimum wage, and this is again this is my take on it. Minimum wage is not a livable wage. It's not meant to be a livable wage. I don't think for the sheer fact that a 16-year-old kid entering the workforce should be paid the same thing as somebody that's minimal skill level but has had years in the workforce
Right,
should be
5
paid the
years
same.
experience,
I don't.
right.
That's not the way labor should be laid out. If you have somebody that works their tail off at a McDonald's or any fast food restaurant or any job, right? Janitor, like Tory, whatever the situation is, should be paid the same as somebody that walks into a workforce as a first-time employee, get paid the same amount of money.
Right. Well,
You know?
that's kind of like what I was saying the other day. If we brought minimum wage up to $15 an hour, you can't expect current employees who are making $15 an hour, who have been at a place for 10 years, to stay there or to feel valued. If you keep everybody's salary would have to go up. If you raise minimum wage to $15 an hour, every person's salary has to go up. And once that happens, when your corporation starts seeing, well, look, the median income is going from $60,000 a year to whatever. Now I can start charging more for my goods, and I can offset some of this cost.
Yeah, it's
rather
not
than pay
about
these
charging
employees.
because they think the offsetting.
That's what they can get
It's
for
going to
it.
have to go up.
Right.
They're not going to. They're not going to go cash deficit. They're
No,
not going to
absolutely
go.
not.
You just can't. You can't take that capital position of losing
Right.
that much revenue and increasing your expenses that much to offset it. I mean, it's
And,
just.
and I think, for the record, I think all of us are in favor of raising the minimum wage to a degree, just not. Tory may be for $15 an hour, but I think you and I are on the same page. And I don't know where your number's at. I'm fine with the incremental increases and the percentages, but $15 an hour I think is just way too much. Now, like I said, if we want to have a discussion on where to put that and giving them, minimum wage a hike, yeah. Because like
What's
you said,
the
since
average
2009.
rent in Louisiana?
I don't know.
Average mortgage?
Again,
You know.
man, you're taking something with
I'm
is
not.
rent, and I get it. You are.
It's a podcast.
I get it, but I'm talking. What I'm saying is that to take something that's because you say your average mortgage in Louisiana. Well, do you know? And I did this. So you know what the average home value in Louisiana is?
What is it?
$300,000.
All right.
That's insane. That is not the average home value in our community.
Right.
It's just not.
Right.
You know, to sit here and say that the average home in Louisiana is $300,000. What do you say the average home? I do know this. I was just reading it the other day. The average home value in the state of New York is $800,000.
But that's because of the big cities
That's
bringing
because of
average up.
Manhattan,
Right.
where your average is over $1.5 million or
Right.
$3
It's the
million.
same thing here. It's Baton Rouge,
So-
New Orleans, those
So-
places that have
Absolutely.
really-
So to
right.
say that it's really misleading to say, well, the average rent. I can tell you this: the average rent in Houma is probably $850. But again, that's why I say it's so hard to talk, because 1 bedroom or 3 bedroom. It's such a
Right.
wide range of scope. It is expensive, and what I can say is that in today's day and age, it is impossible to raise a family with even 2 minimum wage employees living in a household. It's impossible.
Right. So I see, like, I think we just going back and forth, and I'm just asking questions, just to kind of like, for when we get to the end of this, have my little argument or my closeout going. So do I think 39,000? That's the average, you see?
That's a single,
So
like,
I'm just,
25.
I know.
When it's not
I
the
ain't asking for,
average
Right.
worker. The
So,
average
right.
employee makes $39,000 full-time employee. The
All right.
average household brings in $60,000 a year.
So, coming from our background, we do know that people could make it off of that. No doubt about it. You know what I'm saying? We do know anytime there's a uplift in pay in anything, there's going to be a uplift in stuff across the board. I mean, we know that. It's happening pretty much right now by percentage. Maybe not a lot, maybe not big, but it's going to happen sooner or later anyway, and the prices are going to go up sooner or later anyway. 15? I remember the first time I made 15, man. I had been with the company almost 8 years. The mindset behind other people coming in and being able to get the money at the same rate you were, even though the 8 years you put in may not count for nothing. I think, like most companies, I think it would deserve them to have a pay increase also. Most companies are already downsizing, especially in the merchandise world. They go into a lot of robotic self-checkouts and stuff like this. So now you may have, and once again, we just talking, I'm not trying to be against the grain, but now you may have that 1 or 2 Walmart workers in the line, and we know how hard it is to go to Walmart right now. You might be waiting in the line from grocery to garden center, and think about making, let's say that clerk making $10 an hour. They about to go through 20 people. By the time they get to the 10th person, that person's pretty upset. So I'm thinking, so this woman about to talk to me like a dog. If I talk back to her, I'm going to lose my job where I'm only making $10 an hour. And then if I got 2 kids at home, I only can feed one of them off of the combo I could go buy. So it's going to still be the same whether we go to 15, whether we stay the same. Would it make people happy that don't really know the basics behind the economics of it when it happen? Maybe so. But then they're still going to be complaining. I'm a people person. Y'all already know that. So I'm sliding to 15. I'm sorry. That's just me.
I mean, I get that, and that's my position with it when it comes to, we need to do a better job educating people who don't understand the economics behind things when they really want something, because they only see they got those blinders on.
Everything
And
will stay the
because
same.
when you look at it and you truly, dude, I mean, you go back through everything, and this is what I was looking up, income class levels, low class, middle class, upper class. Take Louisiana, something we live in. So anything under $23,000 a year in Louisiana is considered low class poverty. Middle class in Louisiana is $77,000. To be considered upper class in Louisiana, which is the top 10%, it's $185,000 a year. Our minimum wage is federal minimum wage, $7.25 an hour. We do have a median poverty level compared to everybody else, right? And then I was scrolling, I was looking through this spreadsheet, and I said, well, who has the lowest lower class? And if you had to give me a guess, what city entity you think has the lowest poverty, the lowest lower class?
City like in the South? Or
No,
just
it's a
across
national.
America?
It's a national.
US. I'm gonna take a guess at like 2 or 3. You want me to go first?
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm gonna say.
I'm saying it got to be a small city.
I think it's a big city. I'm gonna say Chicago.
Home of Louisiana.
Not even close.
Lafayette.
I'm gonna say like Chicago. Man,
Some small town in Idaho.
See, I thought it was going to be Jackson, Mississippi,
DC.
or Mississippi has the largest poverty rate in the country, so I thought it was going to be there.
I'm gonna say somewhere like Chicago, DC, Philadelphia, like one of those really big
So it's
cities.
D.C. It is Washington, D.C., which surprisingly also has the largest upper class.
That's not surprising.
So, well, when you have
That's all our politicians at. I ain't
well,
surprised at all about
so
that.
this is where I'm going with this, and this is my argument with the huge jump in minimum wage. The economics behind it only benefits one party, and that's D.C. Because when you raise wages, you raise taxes. How can I get more taxes filtered to this government? Right? I can't make you pay them.
Right.
Right? Because if you owe taxes, if you self-employed, you go out, you do your side. I can't force you to pay taxes, right? All I can do is put things against you and make it hard for you to taxes. How can the government guarantee their taxes? Through wages. Because who has to pay them? Businesses. Right? I don't have a choice. When I file my, when you file your payroll and that
Right.
goes through, that's, dude, it's daily penalties if you don't pay those taxes. And it's not worth it. It's not worth losing your business license not to pay payroll taxes. Right? So payroll taxes are not, or the only guarantee that this money is going to continue to come in to the government. So you know what?
That's a good point.
Easy way to increase, because they always want to increase taxes.
Right.
Right? Republicans and Democrats, even though they say, Republicans always say, we don't want to raise taxes. Bullshit. they don't want to their constituents, but they don't vote that way.
They get more
They don't vote in not spending, because if you're truly against not raising taxes, then you need to truly be about not spending wastelessly.
Right, they'll spend,
Right.
but they traditionally, the Republican Party does give more tax breaks than.
I didn't say they give tax breaks
and
is
tax
not
cuts.
cutting taxes,
They give more tax cuts
Right.
too.
but
they
it's
do.
always just moved.
I mean, I'm not saying
It's
yeah,
always
I
just
mean,
moved to another thing.
Right.
But
All I'm saying
that's
is
my
what
thing,
it
is that the
cut,
only
right.
way, and it's like, guess what minimum wage is in D.C.? $15 an hour. So how can you still have the largest poverty, the lowest section of income class poverty levels, the lowest low class, but you're saying that nationally we need to do $15 an hour, but you've done that and it still didn't work.
Look at San Francisco. You same thing. You said
Right.
$15 an hour, but look at their.
But they don't have a
homeless
really
level and
low.
all
Yeah,
that
but
other
that's
stuff.
because that's a whole different.
I mean,
That's
I
a
get
whole
that.
different conversation.
It-
That's because the homeless level in San Francisco has increased because they give so much to the homeless.
That's true.
People literally flock there to be homeless. But, so that's my argument. Is like, how can you say do this and it works? And they've been doing it for 6 years.
All right.
This is my fear
So-
with the whole thing. Let me just get this out, Tory. I don't mean to cut you off, buddy.
All right.
Because I do agree with Tory that if we raise minimum wage to $15 an hour across the board, eventually everything will settle. Because price of goods going to go up, employees,
Yeah.
every employee is going to start making more money, and eventually we'll get back to the same place we are now, right? And we'll have to raise minimum wage a little bit again. My problem is with such a big jump, how long until everything catches up to where it's affecting you and I? Because the minimum wage employee is going to get a huge jump like that. The business is going to say, well, shit, I'm not taking this cut, so I'm raising my goods. And then us in the middle class, we're stuck holding the ball going, well, shit, man, until things catch up, I'm now, bottom. And
So-
I guess that's my fear is that it lowers the middle class. And you can't have a country out of middle class, man. And that's
So
That's
the
my biggest
stimulus
fear with
checks that just and just speaking, did they boost the economy in any way?
I'm glad you asked.
It's just a
also,
question.
yes, they absolutely boosted the economy, but it boosted the economy in the wrong direction.
Meaning,
so when you what makes a
Services and goods probably went
what
up.
makes a strong economy is when consumers actually have money, right? So what it and you can look at this across the board. What people did is that they went out and they spent it, which is the absolute wrong thing to do unless you're spending it on debt. If you're spending it on assets and you're creating assets and you're creating wealth, that's the whole point of behind a true stimulus bill is to create internal wealth, right? But they didn't. Jeff Bezos made $80 billion in 2020. Amazon.
Right. I don't know if I necessarily agree with. To me, a boost is a short-term thing, right? It's not meant for a long term. If I'm giving people stimulus checks, that's meant to give a short-term boost to the economy. So you want people spending money in the marketplace. You want people going out and buying.
Yes, when
goods
George
so that
Bush
your
put his
businesses
stimulus
stay
check
open
in and he
those
gave everybody
kind of things.
$1,000, that's exactly what that was for. Was right for because he wanted people to spend the money.
Right.
And stimulus when it was consistent because this wasn't a one-time thing.
Right. Well, I mean,
Right,
I
this
get
has been
that, but
over time.
Also, we've been shut down for longer.
But again,
you know.
economically, they didn't want waste. Like, not that they wanted, it don't matter what they want, but they wanted people to because people. Again, I'm talking about average, right? I'm not talking about your low classes, your lower class, economically income people. A stimulus check is only going to help them short time unless they do the right thing with the money.
Well,
but
right.
there's other choices that they've made. So
Right. They don't
that's
have a
not
track
yeah.
history of-
But what I'm saying is that so I took the median income per individual, right? Individual, and I was expecting it to see it drop in 2020, right? Because our unemployment rate was almost at 15% at one
Yeah,
point.
but that's a whole different. I mean,
Which is, but wait. So this is where I'm going with it. So median income every 5 years, right? So I'm looking at the. You good?
take a technician route.
All right, go ahead. I'm looking at the median income versus how that's affected in our minimum wage increase. So as the minimum wage increase, has our median income increased?
right.
Right? Like, has it worked both ways? Because we always talk about everybody else gets raises and it happens, right?
Right.
And it doesn't. When you look at the numbers, it's marginal increases every 5 to 10 years just based off of national growth. It didn't matter if minimum wage went up or not, right? So it kind of bases off of GDP, not minimum wage increases, right? So when you take it from 95, I'm just going to go through 2010. 2010 was a little over $30,000. 2015 was $35,000. So in those 5 years, it jumped $5,000. So I was thinking, relatively the same, right? It jumped to $43,000 in 2020. Now these are 2019 numbers. We were at $39,000, right? 2020's numbers went to almost $44,000 a year.
But how much of that
in
has
income.
has to do with like, if you have with the unemployment rate, the government unemployment rate plus the state unemployment, people get paid more money
That's
to
my
sit
point.
home than they are to go to work. So I think that accounts for a lot of that.
It accounts for majority of it.
Right.
Because if I would be willing to bet, if you back all those stimulus out and you back the unemployment out, the extra unemployment, not the state unemployment,
Right.
the additional $600 federal unemployment,
right.
that number drops to below 2015's numbers.
Oh yeah, I would agree
Right?
with that. Yes.
So, and
absolutely.
I don't want to say it should because this was not something that anybody saw coming, but it's definitely one of those things that the government can spend. And like Tory said, we're going to give it to them anyway, just give it to them now. Right? And to me, that's a horrible idea.
Oh, I agree.
Because all it does is create a precedence. And if you go to $15 an hour now, in my opinion, what's going to happen is that employers are going to they're going to ramp up the technology industry's ability to take over jobs.
Oh, 100%.
Right?
Yes. 'Cause
They're going to
I
go,
gotta-
if I'm going to spend it,
Might as
I'm
well buy a
going
machine.
to
Right.
put it into something that doesn't call in sick.
Right.
It doesn't have
I don't have to pay
drama.
$50
It
an hour
doesn't.
to.
I don't have to pay
Right.
workman's comp insurance on the machine. I don't have to
Right.
pay, And Mark Cuban said this a long time ago when it came to the unemployment debate. I mean, the minimum wage debate, that yes, we need to increase it, right? There definitely needs to be some
Right,
sort
but
of
not at that
small magnitude, even
Right,
if it's
yeah.
incremental yearly.
I'm fine.
If
with
you
that.
want to say by
like a
2030
2%.
we'll be at $15 an hour, okay. Look, I get it. Maybe the 2030 might be a little, because it's still. But yeah, I'd be okay. I honestly would be okay with that if you said in
Well,
2 years.
inflation goes up at a rate of what? About an average of 3% a year.
Depends on your GDP and it depends on
So,
the
so
growth.
why? I mean,
but
why can't you set minimum wage to increase 2% a year? Or whatever.
because when you don't have inflation, do you take it back?
no,
Well, that's why you don't, right? Because when the price of gas, because certain things, and consumers can dictate at some point what's going to happen with inflation, right? So we'll just compare it to our other conversation with the Reddit folks and the Doge and the crypto.
Right.
You get enough people behind something, right? There's a power in numbers.
oh, absolutely.
So you can, as especially China, especially Russia, especially now that they're coming off with all these different. They're trying to create central banks of their own, crypto central bank. So to base something off and say as something happens that it automatically increases, I think is a terrible idea.
But most, well, I want to say most, a lot of retirement systems have inflationary costs built into them.
Yeah, but that's predetermined for a long time ago, right? So when you talk about any kind of draw pension system, draw IRAs or whatever, the way the payout is drawn on that. But
Right.
it doesn't necessarily, it just funnels your money differently, right? That's not a cost to anybody. When you're talking about going off of inflation and minimum wage consistently goes up, in my, I guess, estimations, all that would do is when you start getting to a hyperinflation rate, and that happens, you're also increasing minimum wage along with that, all that's going to do is speed up that inflation.
But see, like I guess what I'm getting at is if you have a set incremental increase, that regardless on if the goods and services or inflation or however you want to put it, whether that's higher, lower, whatever, if you have that set increase in minimum wage, then I think it's an easier transition for us if we know it's coming.
I agree with you 100%.
So I think that if you have something, say, I'm not saying it has to be 2% or whatever it is, whatever those set incremental increases are, I think that the consumer is able to plan and prepare a little bit better for it. I think the employer or the company is, the minimum wage recipient and the middle class is all. I think it's a smoother.
But you can't tie in middle class to
transition.
minimum wage.
But you can and you can't. Like my whole point was like earlier, if we jump minimum wage to $15 an hour from right now, it absolutely affects the middle class 100%, because that's going to be the last one that's going to see the positive effects of it. And when I say positive, I'm talking about salary increases for them too. They're going to be the ones stuck paying for the freaking increase on the goods and services, right?
I agree with that.
And the tax hikes to pay for the $15 an hour minimum wage for the minimum wage employees. All that's going to come back. It's the middle class that has to pay for that. And in the time that they're paying for that, they're not getting an increase in salary because they're going to be the last ones that get any kind of benefit from it.
I get that, but what I'm that's that whole trickle down, the thing. I don't believe, because I think the same thing will happen even if because no other job increases wages based upon our GDP or our anything like that. So
No, but
even if you increase it and you say we're going to increase it 3% based upon inflation, your wages don't increase on that. So when we get a 10-year period when inflation runs rampant,
there is a trend in a lot of workplaces that are starting to put in like a 1, 2 to 3% annual salary increase every year to keep up with the cost of living. That way they don't face those things where and I'll use law enforcement as an example. When you have an agency that has those increases in place already, they don't have to worry about their employees being underpaid compared to the next person or whatever, because they always have those raises coming in, right? So it's it helps morale. It helps with retention. It helps with a whole lot of things. And I think you're starting to see, like, I know the fire department has those.
But now, I mean, I get that, and I understand, and yes, I'm 100% in agreement with you. It does all of that. But those, I guess we're getting in my brain. We're getting off of because that doesn't affect the minimum wage people, and it doesn't affect. Those are going to happen. Those policies are in place. That's you know what I'm saying. So by increasing or not increasing minimum wage, I don't see how that has.
Well, what I'm getting at is if you set the same type of thing up for minimum wage employees, that they get a certain percentage increase in minimum wage every year, or whatever increment you want to set it at, then you're guaranteeing these people are going to at least get increases in their pay from now till, I guess the end of time or whatever. But so we won't have the problem where we're falling so far behind. You may have to increase or decrease, I guess. It's small. I don't know.
Yeah. I get where you're going. I think this is my interpretation, and I agree with you on this. I think every 3 to 5 years, say every 3 years or every congressional election or Senate election, first bill on it has to adjust the minimum wage.
I'm fine with that.
Right? And say, come in and say, okay, this is where we're at.
Every year, but
so, it
it
can't be every year. I mean, unless they have a session and say, okay, over the next, from 21 through 25, we're going to increase it 30 cents a year through that. I would be 100% okay with that. I would be 100% okay, like we said earlier, if saying by whatever will be at $15 an hour.
Right.
I'm good with that. But to have the argument that there's nowheres that is shown. Again, you take all the places that are making this minimum wage, that are making this $15 an hour, and they still have records in homeless, record numbers in poverty, record number in lower. Right. So I don't see how you can justify and say, yes, this works, and yes, this is something that needs to be done nationwide to make any sense. So, I don't know.
I think we're in agreement on that one. That some type of incremental increase, and like I like the idea of every 3 years, whatever. The first order of business is to look at minimum wage, see if we need to increase it. I'm fine with that because I think everybody here thinks that minimum wage should be a little higher, right? I think just where that ball stops is where we're. We have a difference of opinion, but something needs to be in place to address the issue, to where we don't have a big national debate like this, and we don't have trying to increase their stuff, doubling somebody's price just because we're trying to give money out to them to make people.
Just to appease,
right.
Like Tory, I just want to make people happy, so give them what they want. But we're gonna kind of tailor this one down. So I know Tory's been busy. Such a dedicated player. It's all good. We get it. So give me a final thought. See, give me something that way you want to go with this. Give me your rant.
Like you said, I'm a people person. So I believe eventually, like Coty was saying, that we're going to get to them stages, and even in the slow process, things are still going to gradually rise in price. Maybe jumping it at 15, a whole $6 and some change.
Almost double it.
Right.
It
over
might
double
be
it.
A little rough in the beginning because everything else would double. But I mean, if we could do it, what y'all was saying, $2 every 4 years.
I would be good right now. Again, when you look at the average of what the increase is at 25 to 30%, is do that. Give them $9 an hour minimum wage right now. That would be a huge proponent of having the conversation that we need to have two separate minimum wages, right? Because, and this is somewhere I wanted to go with this as well, but you have companies like these huge companies, like Walmart, for example. They're one of the largest employers in the world, and they're one of the largest benefactors of our welfare system, right? The tax benefits and shit that they get from the government and the subsidies that they get, and they also have the largest number of employees on federal benefits. And it's like that's crazy. And when you compare them to their competitors, like Costco, for example, Costco's average wage is over $16 an hour.
Yeah, how
but
much
guess
is
what
their average
Costco
price?
does? It's still cheaper than Walmart.
No,
It's competitive to Walmart, right? That's what I'm saying. Costco is their competitor, but the reason that you
Yeah, but I haven't shopped at Costco to know the price comparison.
they're
for
Sam's
a gallon
Club.
of milk
They're same price as Sam's Club. They're competitive within pennies, right? I mean that's the direct competition. But what I'm getting at is that they are I don't want to say a more humane company, but that's how they're definitely more employee centered. They
Right.
pay their employees well. Their average management position is very high, even department management. So where Walmart's department managers are still fairly low in relation to what the company does. So if you're going to have that type of business, I think that, and it's not going to happen because you can't mandate as a government companies pay people certain amounts of money besides a federal minimum wage. But there needs to be more pressure put on these large companies to say, hey, like you're returning double-digit returns to your investors, but you're doing it at the disservice to taxpayers. Taxpayers are providing these double digits, right? Because of the huge subsidies that they get from the governments and because of the huge benefits that they get because they have employees on food stamps and they have employees on, federal, receiving federal
Right, but and
money.
You're right. As a federal government, you got to tread lightly when you start talking about making businesses pay people. Other than
Oh, you can't. I'm not.
Right.
I'm not even benefit for it. I'm not arguing that
But-
you should. I'm just saying.
But I think,
As a
think
community.
as a workforce or as a community, which was my next thing, we can demand higher.
I don't shop at Walmart.
From them, right? But that's how you change those
Exactly.
things. Is if enough people say, I'm not shopping at Walmart, I'm going to go shop at Costco because they treat their employees better, or enough people say I'm not working at Walmart when I can go work at Costco, then those changes might come into effect. But that's how you invoke those type of changes. I don't think it needs to be federally.
It can't be federally done.
I'm not big government.
No,
I just
it can't be federally done. But Coty, yep. What's we're gonna pull this one down. So I think we're all in agreement. I thought you were gonna have a complete $15 an hour. I'll pay the people, give them their money. I'm not gonna lie, bro. I thought you was gonna come in here. I had stats ready for you to be like, it just ain't gonna work, bro.
I keep telling you, be coming in here with your own stats and don't be giving us no heads up on what we talking about.
I'm sorry, I don't look.
In a box.
That
And then,
phone
look,
works
you be
two
having
ways.
that-
You
be
can
having,
answer it and dial out.
You tell
I'm just
us
saying.
what time. Hey, 6:00. We gonna be here.
6:15, we
So,
show up.
Hey, so say, hey, these are the topics we gonna talk about.
I'm gonna do a much better job on that. I know. We just talked about this yesterday before yesterday, and it was like, and actually my son brought it up. I said, because he kind of been listening to a couple of them, and I said, what you want us to talk about? Because I'm trying to get him on, because he doesn't talk like to me. Like we've had these conversations before, but when I sit him down about something that he wants to talk about, kid talks for hours, and he's smart, and I love to hear that. Like, where you at? Where your friends at? What are y'all talking about? What's something that y'all? And he said, let's talk about minimum wage. So me and him had a 30-minute conversation about it, and that boy.
How does he feel?
He thinks that minimum wage should be a livable wage.
So
And I
he
said,
thinks it
so
should be a 15?
when you go get a job, you ready to move out and live on your own? And he said, no. And I said, so you don't deserve a livable wage? And he said, okay, you're right. And he kind of changed his tone a little
That's
bit.
not everybody's.
Right.
I
I get it,
Right.
but that's my stronghold is that you can't pay a 16-year-old kid the same pay you're
Right.
paying somebody. That's ridiculous.
and that's kind of my closing argument on it as well, man.
Well,
Just,
dang.
Go.
no, go ahead.
I'm
Go ahead.
speaking of it, so work kind of took it off. So my company did that maybe about 5 years ago. When I started working for the company, I was making maybe like $10.87, and I probably got like a 5 to 10 cent raise every year for the next 4 or 5 years. And then they came in where they went, all right, everybody coming in starting, don't know nothing, starting at $14.87. You know what I'm saying? So already they was making more money than me, but they did compensate me with the pay gap. You know what I'm saying? So when we say certain things, and I love my company for that, you know, like, yeah, I know it's going to bust balls, but it got companies doing it already.
Yep.
You know? And I'm just kind of upset that, not upset, but work called to where I couldn't really tune in to the end.
I get
that
it.
was one of the points I wanted to bring up. Like, for everything we say can't be done, it has somebody already doing it too. Now, do we know it's going to cost? It's going to cost somebody no matter what, you know? And also, even with that, my company didn't change the benefit structure. You know, most companies' benefit packages changed even when Obamacare and everything came in. My company took that hit. So, once again, like, my company almost is for the people. So,
and let me, I'm just going to, because this was my son brought up, right? That, well, these big companies, because, you know, he looks at these Walmarts and companies of your magnitude and say, well, they're making all this money. And I get that. And I said, but what you don't get is that when you create a law and a policy because of big companies, you're going to kill small businesses.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah,
because I can tell you right now, the bakery shop, the donut shop, they can't afford.
$15 an hour.
Look, they got
No.
10 people, 12 people working a shift, right? And if you look at, you're telling me that, you know, that donut shop has got to make $350 an hour just to pay the employees? How many donuts they got to sell every hour just to?
Right.
It ain't gonna
That's true.
happen. It's impossible.
Right.
So
That's why I said
that-
small increases.
yeah, you
I'm fine
can't
with.
you can't just say.
But a huge jump like that, man, that's scary, man. It's
You know-
scary for small businesses. It's scary for the middle class. It's just
It'll kill small business
it
if
will.
you put, you know, look at these lawn service companies, even the locally ones that we have that have, you know, 50 or 60 employees, right? And you magnitude. I get most of those guys are making close to that $15 an hour. So if you rate, guess what's going to happen? They minimize them,
right.
you know, because there's no way that there's just no way. Because again, workman's comp insurance, all these things are based upon your payroll. So payroll increases, my liability insurance increases, my workman's comp insurance
Everything
increases.
increases, right.
And you can't afford that.
Right.
So if a service company was charging you $60 an hour, right? Because again, their hour includes everything that compensates their business. If it's charging you $60 an hour, they're gonna have to go up to $100 an hour to compensate that cost. And that's just for them making the same amount of money.
Right.
Who's gonna do that? They can't. They're gonna go shut down. I'm gonna work for somebody else.
Yep.
You know, and then what that does to your lower skilled people when your higher skilled people come back in the workforce, pushes them back down. It's a bad cycle it creates,
Right.
right? So if you see what I'm saying? If Joe Blow plumber is independent and has 2 employees and they say this got to get raised, and he's like, can't afford it.
Well,
He's going back in the workforce.
Or
When he goes back in the workforce, he's going to be a top dog, right? He's got the resume. He's going to get a job. Everybody else that wasn't, so somebody's going to get laid off, or when layoffs happen, he's the first to go back to work, not the other two. Yeah, it just creates more dependency on free money. It creates, it promotes less initiative to become a skilled worker, to move in those positive directions. So,
Right.
I didn't want to beat this like a dead horse. You know,
No, I think we got our points across. You know, I think everybody's in favor of raising minimum wage. It's just a how much and how often.
Yeah.
You know, is the balancing act. But,
And I would be okay if they came across and they said, we're going to do a $15 an hour minimum livable wage, and here's the qualifications to meet the livable wage, right? You have to be, 25. You have to work 40 hours a week, because that's how a lot of these big companies get away from paying people, is they work them 36 and a half hours a week. They're not considered full-time. They don't get benefits. So I get that. I'm aware of that, right? But if you came up, you want to, and you just blanket it and say this is going to be the pay, you're gonna stifle growth. You're gonna stifle new employment. It's inevitable, and it drives me crazy when people argue otherwise, because there's no numbers that agree with it. There's no numbers that say yes, that makes sense.
you're right.
You know.
Now, I would like to hear from, our listeners. How do you feel about minimum wage? where do you think it should be? How do you think it should be handled? Hit us up in the comments. Let us know. I'd like to read them and maybe pick a few.
Yeah, look, Coty loves the keyboard warriors. He tries
do.
to pick some fights sometimes, and I'm like, oh, I'm leaving this alone. I don't want to do this. so please leave comments. I know when he.
And I won't pick fights. I truly just
Well,
I want to interact with you
you
guys.
definitely you like starting that conversation, and I wish more people would reply to your comments. I don't want to reply because I don't want it to be like me.
Right.
This is our comments.
Right.
This is where we have our
Right.
conversation.
Right.
So
They don't want to get pulled over.
A lot of pulling people over. Yeah.
I don't want to get pulled over. So yeah, guys, we'll wrap on that. Please, like Coty said, leave comments. Let us know what you think. If you have something you want us to talk about, let us know. Give us a heads up. Send us a private message if you don't want it in public. We'd love to have you on. We'd love to know, even if you don't want to come on and you just want to hear us talk about a specific topic. Let us know. We appreciate the love. We appreciate the support. Please continue to listen, like, follow, subscribe. Where you at, Tory?
Get that money, man. Nah, it's minimum wage, man. We've been doing pretty good at maintaining our lifestyles off of what we already have, and I believe everybody wants to get to that major buck. It's a slow process. It's a horrible process for some of us, and hey, man, just trust in yourself, man. Make as much as you can make. Probably need to inquire yourself a side hustle if the minimum wage is something that's not suitable for you to make it. There's a million things out here that lazy people are not willing to do themselves that you can make an easy buck on. Trust me. So
I'm so glad you said that because I've been wanting to say that since we started. So congratulations, thank you.
So other than that, our government is our government. The laws are the laws. The taxes are the taxes. Stay positive.
Coty?
Yeah, I'm not going to keep echoing the same thing. I just add to what Tory said too. Make better life choices. As you're coming up, it'll be the best advice that I can give. Don't be afraid to say I don't know, and seek advice from people who do. Life's not hard to figure out. You make good choices, you have good outcomes. You make bad choices, you have bad outcomes. So I would encourage people to just reach out, and just look around. And if you want to live like the people around you, make the decisions they make. If you want to do better and be better, then you may have to make some better decisions or some harder choices. So that's kind of my overall take on it.
I agree with you 100%. That's, again, I don't want to continue to echo the same thing, but it's about choices. It's about you have free will. You want to make more money, earn more money. Minimum wage, in my opinion, and I think everybody echoes that, is for minimum skilled level, minimum entry level, and you want more, learn more. Ask somebody. Find somebody. If you see somebody that's doing what you want to do or making the money that you want to make, talk to them. Majority of people, especially your high earners, have no problem talking to you about how they made their money, what they got to do. But I promise you what they will all echo is that they work their ass off to do it.
Yep.
You cannot want the $1 million lifestyle and work a part-time job. All these things you see on social media, these get rich quick. I work 25 hours a week from this island in Fiji. Bullshit. The reason they do it is because you pay them to do it. Because you pay them to speak into something and say, hey, look, here's my $99 a month. Believe me, it does not happen. Passive income is not something that just does not take hard work.
Right.
Passive income is something that comes from the side. And if you want it, it's there to get it. So again, work hard, keep grinding. That's the biggest thing. And again, remember,
Save.
Go ahead, T.
No, I'm just saying, save.
Yep,
Make sure you put something to the side, man.
absolutely. And remember, guys, the divide is not so wide.
Peace.